Kairukuhiri grants missing. Concerns over stop in investigations. And 3,000 affected by Ulawun eruption.
This is National MTV News with Morobe Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Thursday's news. A total of 3.95 million kina in grants belonging to the Kairukuhiri district is missing. Kairukuhiri MP Peter Isoaimo made this known in Parliament today. Mr. Isoaimo says after giving details to the Finance Department and relevant authorities, verbal assurances in the past 6 months have not resulted in anything tangible.
This would be the second time for the Kairukuhiri MP to raise the question on the floor of Parliament. While giving the details of the missing 2 million check and erroneous payment of 1.9 million to Komo Magarima district by the Finance Office, MP Isoaimo says delivering services to his people is very hard. He says not a single toya from the missing funds has been remitted.
I am unable to deliver on this because of dire financial situation I find myself in. Please give us back the 1.95 million, what was already ours, and give us also the 2 million, what is also ours.
In January 2016, DSIP funds belonging to the Kairukuhiri district were paid to the Komo Magarima district. This was identified by the Kairuku district and a letter was sent to BSP to reverse the funding. To date, the Finance Department has kept a tight lip about the 1.9 million missing DSIP funds.
Can the Minister for Finance inform my people of Kairukuhiri in this house when the 1.95 million kina that was recalled back to Waigani public accounts on 8th of June 2018 and promised to be reimbursed will be given to my people?
In response, Finance Minister Charles Abel says he will return to Parliament with a brief of the missing funds.
Existing commitments to the Kairukuhiri district, and so we will look into and just find out exactly where these monies are, and we'll do our best to honour those commitments. But I'll give those specifics back on the floor of Parliament together with some of the other questions asked next week.
While expressing the economic situation and government's initiative to release DSIP and PSIP to districts, the Finance Minister says no single district will be isolated from any development grants.
There has been no deliberate attempt to starve any particular district or victimize any particular district or province.
Jack Lapava Jr., National MTV News.
Still in Parliament, East New Britain Governor Nakikus Konga is appealing to the national government to release outstanding disaster funds. Governor Konga said roads are falling apart as the province experiences more wet weather. Central Governor Robert Agarobe also demanded answers for funding that was allocated by the previous O'Neill-Abel government.
And unfortunately, when the check was presented to BSP Bank by GRA, the check was dishonored. Minister for Finance, we are not crying, my province is not crying for the 97 million. We only want to have the first phase of the 17.8 million. When will you give us this money?
We now also have a similar disaster back in Central Province as well, with the heavy rains that have been going on for the last 2 weeks. So we are in desperate need for some more funds to assist us to deal with this disaster at hand.
The former Prime Minister promised several times to honor that commitment. To date, it is still outstanding. We needed that funding to be ready so that we can build our Provincial Disaster Management Centre. To date, it has not been remitted to us.
In the context of all the other pressing issues around disasters, while we look at fulfilling the budget in 2019, so the rest of the disaster money can be met. And then, of course, the longer-term issues I already mentioned about how we go forward as a government dealing with the issue of natural disasters. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Serious concerns on a halt in police investigations into allegations of mismanagement of funds allocated for the Manam resettlement program have again surfaced on the floor of Parliament. Porgera MP Robert Naguri told Parliament today that 3 separate investigations were halted, allegedly by acting Medang Police Commander Ben Neneo. His questions were directed to Police Minister Brian Kramer.
and the Grand Hall.
The Porgera MP explained in Parliament that 6 million kina from the Morobe Provincial Treasury Department allocated for his people in Manam was transferred to Ramu Development Foundation Limited, an entity established by the provincial government to oversee provincial affairs in Madang. Naguri said a preliminary investigation was established by the fraud squad in Madang, but the investigation was stopped days after it began.
Now I would like the police minister to investigate this, and I would like the police minister, if he's aware of this, as a local member from Madang, and I'd like to ask him what is he going to do in regard to the actions of the PPC in Madang in relation to these 3 investigations which he stopped.
While explaining his responsibilities, Kramer said he cannot order police officers to do investigations as the police minister. However, what he says he can do is to advise the police commissioner, Gary Baki, on these allegations.
So there are provisions in our criminal code against individuals perverting the course of justice or attempting to defeat the course of justice. So those issues I had planned to raise in my statement. So in response to your question, yes, I will raise this issue directly with the minister.
Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
In the past 24 hours, Mount Olawun in West New Britain Province has erupted, affecting over 3,000 people. It is one of the most active and dangerous volcanoes in the country. Volcanologist Chris McKee says because of the development of agricultural industry around it, it's become more of a risk than ever before. The ashfall from the eruption has greatly affected gardens, water supply and homes. This will be a hazard for a long period of time, especially with heavy rainfall. The National Disaster Centre met today with relevant partners to finalize assistance plans. They have helicopters in place and funds available for those affected in the short term.
Provision of food and shelter as required, and we're waiting on the provincial authorities to tell us exactly the quantities of shelter and other foodstuffs that they require. We expect that to happen in the next 48 hours, that we'll have that information from them. So we'll await the report from the volcanologist as to how long these people have to stay away from that particular area. We want to make sure those people are safe and well looked after in the interim. But we expect it to be a short-term event, not a long-term event.
So these eruptions generally send an eruption column to about 15 to 20 kilometres high, and ashfall is spread over a very large area, usually towards the west or southwest of the volcano. Mobilise the ash into mud flows. So that is the clear message that we want people to have, to be very wary of possible mud flows in watercourses around the volcano.
The Pacific Regional Climate Change Finance Meeting is currently underway in Singatoka, Fiji. This meeting is seen as an opportunity for Pacific Island nations to come together and share the challenges they are facing in their respective countries in terms of climate financing and to come up with solutions to address these challenges.
Pacific Island nations face serious threats from climate change. Many projects or programs have been set up to promote resilience and mitigate the impacts. With this come the finance aspect. Pacific Island countries have access to climate and disaster risk finance, but there is a need to strengthen the system of their national institutions for the management of these funds.
So there are different sources of climate and disaster risk finance. But in particular, in relation to climate finance, countries are accessing them indirectly. So a lot of governments are wanting to access it directly, but they're getting the money indirectly, so which means it comes through another source before it gets to them. But in order for them to get the access directly, they need to set up and strengthen their national institutions, which is what these projects have been designed to do. Strengthen policy, build capacity.
This was highlighted during the Regional Climate Change Finance meeting currently underway at Singatoka, Fiji. Damian Horeambe, the first Assistant Secretary from the PNG Treasury Department, said, in PNG we do have our fair share of challenges when it comes to climate financing.
In our system, I think the government in its wisdom has established the CCDA,
an entity responsible for climate change issues. And CCDA is now doing a lot of work in terms of identifying projects around the country and also working towards helping in terms of accessing the grant financing.
This regional climate change finance meeting is seen as an opportunity for dialogue amongst all stakeholders involved and to continue this conversation of climate finance in their respective countries.
I'm hoping that during the next 2 days we can come up with some innovative solutions for some of these problems and issues that exist. Having representatives from a number of different countries in the Pacific, I think what we'll find is a lot of the problems that they face are actually quite similar. So I think the opportunity for different countries to sit together to discuss them, you'll actually find that some of the solutions that have been found in one country will be able to be used in others. So I think it's going to be a great chance to be able to identify some of the issues and find solutions to them as well.
What we'd like to see is some frank conversations about the experiences that countries as well as different entities in terms of the challenges that are faced. So we tend to sort of be a bit more diplomatic in how, the experiences, whether good or bad, that we're faced with. And the only way we can really address the issue is if we are frank about what the real challenges are. And I think that requires building some level of trust, and I think these forums offer that opportunity for us to not only network, but also strengthen the relationships across different agencies between government, NGOs, private sector, and of course our development partners.
Florence John Duo in Singatoka, Fiji, National EMTV News.
At the Regional Climate Change Finance meeting held in Singatoka, emphasis has also been placed on the media being advocates when it comes to informing the people on what climate financing is.
Recognize media as an element or key element in terms of pushing for change and reform at the country level. We've been talking about public finance management. The key ministry for that reform is Ministry of Finance. But if the media be able to play the role in terms of indicating to them, this is an area that I learned when I was attending this workshop. Where are we with these procurement processes, planning, budgeting, oversighting, and everything? If they are not moving, then obviously the whole effectiveness of economic management and your system's efficiency will not be there. So you have to you play a key role in reform development in most countries in the region. So I want to see you play a key role when you go back to your countries, respective countries, in terms of being part of the reform.
Here with National EMTV News this Thursday, we go for our first break. When we come back, the European Union and PNG's 40-year partnership highlighted in a documentary. Stay tuned for the details. Welcome back to National EMTV News. At the start of this week, the European Union to Papua New Guinea, in cooperation with the PNG Department of Planning and Monitoring, launched a documentary titled EU-PNG 40 Years of Partnership. The documentary highlighting some of the most important projects and initiatives developed by the EU in Papua New Guinea.
In 2017, when the European Union and Papua New Guinea celebrated their 40 years of partnership, the delegations decided to commission a documentary to celebrate this event. EMTV's multimedia agency, MTech Media, took 2 years to finalize this documentary. Speaking at the launching of the documentary, EMTV and MTech's acting chief executive officer, Sheena Hughes, said the documentary delivers some strong messages as it touches on some real crucial moments in the history of the relationship the European Union and PNG have.
Our Tech Media crew visited 4 provinces of Papua New Guinea during this production, which lasted several months, from Bougainville, Morobe, Madang and the Highlands region. Along the way, they not only picked up a lot of information and historical memories of the partnership, but they also realized that many of the interventions by the European Union over the years had long-term effects, some of which are still felt today in Papua New Guinea.
Ms. Hughes says the documentary produced portrays the importance of international cooperation. Also present at the launch was the European Union Ambassador to PNG, Ioannis Georgarakis Argyropoulos, who said meeting the criteria of the film was very challenging because of the lack of recordings and necessary data.
Very difficult criteria, which are, actually there are only two, but are very difficult to capture. Both is to be informative and entertaining. It has also to meet another criteria. It should also cover all types of audiences, European audiences and Papua New Guinea audiences. We had, on the other hand, a major advantage, the beauty of the country.
As the two partners enter the next level of cooperation in 2020, which also marks the end of the Cotonou Agreement, which is the treaty that was signed between the European Union and the African, Caribbean and Pacific Group of States, or ACP countries, that aims at reducing and eventually eradicating poverty while contributing to sustainable development, the timing of the documentary seemed right to reflect on some of the achievements and challenges faced in the past while keeping an eye on the future. Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
There has been a cut in the allocation of TFF funding to schools in Morobe Province. Education Program Advisor Keith Jiram says he is yet to get an explanation from the Education Department on this matter. In the meantime, he is appealing to parents to pay project fees to keep schools running.
It's the end of Term 2 and secondary and vocational schools in Morobe are yet to receive TFF funds. Only primary and elementary schools have. Education Program Advisor Keith Jiram says their funds are already in the system, however was delayed due to changes in ministers. However, Mr. Jiram says there is another concern with TFF allocation for the province.
There is a big cut in the allocation, and I've tried my best to ask the officers down there in Port Moresby to explain to me the reason of cut.
Morobe City Lay is the second largest in the country with over 300 educational institutions. Huonville Primary School is one, feeling the effect of cutting TFF allocations. Head teacher Willie Villakiva says funds for terms 1 and 2 were not enough to meet most of the school's expenses.
We are not sure how much per student, how much is paid for per student. But according to some information, it is supposed to be 290. According to that figure, we are supposed to get good number of money. But what we have received so far for the last 2 terms is very low.
Mr. Jiram, on the other hand, is appealing to schools to collect project fees from parents. He says with TFF issues, running of Term 3 is likely to depend on these fees.
Morobe is advantage to charge project fees which has been approved by the department. So it is a matter of us encouraging parents to pay the project fees.
Most schools will agree that TFF funding for the first 2 terms had a lot of irregularities. They remain optimistic for Term 3. Charlene Eri, National EMTV News, Lay.
Today officially concludes the 22-year Build, Operate, Transfer arrangement between Edarano and Malaysian consortium PNG Water Limited. The second phase of the 2 agreements under the BO3 contract since 1996 ended today with the Mount Ariama water treatment facility being handed over to Edarano.
It has been 22 years since the BOT agreement was signed between Edarano and Malaysian consortium George Kent PNG Water Limited to manage the Mount Ariama water treatment plant. This is the only water treatment facility that treats and processes 184 million liters of raw water coming from Sirinomu Dam every day before it is supplied to the city. Since June 1997, the George Kent PNG Water Limited has been operating the Mount Ariama water treatment plant facility.
We were told that Port Moresby had water problem, not enough water, but they don't have the sufficient funds to upgrade. So then we came up with what we call a BOT, which is a kind of PPP. It's Build, Operate and Transfer.
Today marks the end of the major concessionaire agreement in which the sewage and water facilities built under the BOT agreement were transferred and handed over to Edaranu. The first phase under the Consumer Service Agreement ended in November 2018, where all billings and collections ceased. With the facility transferred to Edaranu, it has also come with a challenge to continue the legacy left by PNG Water Limited, meeting the increasing demand of the increasing population in Port Moresby.
So that's the challenge that Edaranu faces today. From today onwards, that we've got to deliver the same supply, quality and quantity, and that's what our customers demand. So the challenge is now on to Edaranu from today onwards as we take on this challenge.
After the final reading of the meter at 12 p.m. today, the keys were handed over to Edaranu with exchange of tokens of appreciation. The change in management of the facility also comes with transferring of all staff to Edaranu. A new plant manager was also appointed by Edaranu to manage the water treatment facility.
Do my best to sustain the services that the city of Port Moresby requires in terms of supplying the quantity and quality that this city and the ratepayers deserve.
This build-operate transfer contract is said to be the first in PNG through the public-private partnership. A representative from Kumul Consolidated Holdings, shareholder to Edaranu, says there is potential for the country to invest in public-private partnership in sectors like energy.
This is a classic public-private partnership model that has worked for our country. And we can do a lot more of this type of model in the water sector, in the power sector, and at the same time we will empower our people, the landowners, the provincial government can participate.
Patricia Kiamo, National EMTV News.
The Cocoa Board of Papua New Guinea has announced that it will phase out the usage of unregulated cocoa fermentories that use firewood to dry cocoa beans. PNG Cocoa Board CEO Boto Gopu says it's part of an effort to eradicate smoke-tainted beans that contribute to poor quality of cocoa. Gopu says by 2025, all old fermentories will be replaced by solar combination dryers, a new regulated model that uses both solar and fire.
This is one of the first 6 cocoa solar combination dryers to be introduced in East Newberton Province. At this commissioning at Bitavavar village, just a few kilometers outside of Kokopo town yesterday, many villagers gathered to see what it looked like. It's a new model of cocoa fermentories that the PNG Cocoa Board wants to introduce in cocoa producing regions in the country. PNG Cocoa Board CEO Boto Gopu says it's one of the steps taken in an effort put forward by the cocoa regulatory body and its partners to help reshape the country's cocoa industry.
We will give a notice out to the industry, informing the industry that the traditional kiln pipe dryers will be phased out by 2025.
While the cocoa pot borer infestation has been controlled, Gaupu says there is more work that needs to be done, and that is to continue educating farmers on new farming techniques, looking for possible overseas markets, and most importantly, to educate them about producing quality beans for export.
A total of 400,000, almost 500,000 cocoa trees have been planted in East New Britain alone in the last 4 years. And when this comes in on stream into production, we anticipate it to bring on board also about 600 additional tons to the existing 6,000 tons that we have after the CPB.
For now, cocoa production may have come back, but it's nowhere near its previous status in the province. It's a combination of effort put together by donor agencies such as the World Bank, DFAT through its PPAP projects, and support coming from individual smallholder farmers. New breeds of cocoa seedlings tolerant to the CPB pest have been introduced. The Cocoa Board sees it as a massive effort to regain farmers' confidence in the industry at all costs.
We are rolling out planting as well as organizing groups. As extension, mode of extension we have changed to shifted from doing extension on ad hoc to group approach.
But while that is happening, equal attention must be given to complement the seedlings that are being distributed, Mr. Gaupu says. More cocoa trees means more famine trees will be needed to cater for all the bins that will be harvested, and these bins that will be processed will be regulated through this new model of dryers. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
You're watching National EMTV News. Still ahead, Prime Minister James Marape gives assurance on negotiations for the Porgera Mining Lease, and we'll also take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Prime Minister James Marape has provided an assurance for proper negotiations for the Porgera Mining Lease. Marape says his government is serious in putting resource owners first while making sure investors pay their tax and operate business in a friendly environment. The Prime Minister made these remarks while answering a question from Enga Governor Sir Peter Ipatas.
The mining lease for the Porgera mine has come to discussions on the floor of Parliament. Enga Governor Sir Peter Ipatas says resource owners and the provincial government have been kept out in most mining negotiations. He says the mine has supported the country through its revenue, however resource owners have been denied rightful benefits.
The last 6 years, the landowners of Porgera and the Enga provincial government, knowing that this SML will expire, have been working tirelessly on trying to come up with a very good deal for our people and this country.
The mining lease for the Porgera mine will expire in August this year. Governor Ipatas says if the Marape Stephen government is serious in sharing equal benefits of such resource, people must be the focus.
Sit down one demo landowners, now provincial government representatives long work him out way forward. Look long how best by me improving revenue belong country along this plan mine blue, to ask the state negotiating team to seriously sit down and involve our landowner representatives and the provincial government so that we can have a good revenue base for our country. Thank you.
Prime Minister James Marape assured the Engan governor and his people that the Porgera lease will be a priority. He says a state negotiation team will be sent to Enga for discussions pertaining the mining lease and other benefits. Again, PM Marape says not only the mining laws will be reviewed, but sectors like forestry and fisheries.
And so within the next 2 weeks, we will sit with the Enga provincial government, the Porgera landowners, and tidy on issues that we feel must be addressed. And together as a government and as a country, we have a clear position in as far as renewal of the lease or seeking for a new operator of the mine or whatever arrangement we enter into post 16th of August 2019.
Jack Lapava Jr., National EMTV News.
Recently, the PNG Nurses Association announced that the annual Nurses Symposium will be hosted in Chimbu Province from the 7th to the 20th of September. The event in Kundiawa will see nurses from across the country gather to discuss issues and ways to prevent communicable and non-communicable diseases. Nurses Association General Secretary Gibson Siena said this year over 1,000 nurses are expected to attend.
Every year, nurses across the country gather to discuss health-related issues affecting service delivery and ways to address them. This year's symposium will focus around the theme, Nurses, a voice to lead in prevention of communicable and non-communicable diseases.
The current major health issues in PNG is lifestyle disease. People are experiencing kidney problem, heart disease, which is diabetes. They're all part of lifestyle disease.
The nursing research presenters will focus on educational advanced nursing research as the symposium's theme is to share knowledge and experiences. According to PNG NA General Secretary Gibson Siune, nurses involved in management as well as clinical nurses will come together and identify gaps, weaknesses, strengths and opportunities in nursing service delivery. Last year, the 15th Nasa Symposium was held in Northern Province and about 1,000 nurses attended. More nurses are expected to attend this year's symposium with the road link between the Highlands region and Momase. Patricia Chiamo, National EMTV News.
Turning overseas now, the United States President is tearing into Robert Mueller and the Russian investigation ahead of the special counsel's public testimony before Congress in a few weeks. Donald Trump is furious that the matter is still ongoing.
The Mueller thing never stops.
President Trump railing against congressional Democrats after learning Robert Mueller will testify publicly for the first time since he started investigating the president and Russian election interference.
How many times do we have to hear it? It never ends. It just keeps going on and on. At what point does it end? It's a disgrace.
Mueller set to appear July 17th before the House Judiciary and Intelligence Committees. Democrats subpoenaed the special counsel, who had hoped to avoid testifying publicly.
Now, I hope and expect this to be the only time that I will speak to you in this manner.
Mueller's appearance comes at a pivotal moment as Democrats weigh whether to dive into divisive impeachment proceedings. Either way, Democrats say Mueller's appearance will help Americans better understand his report.
He will be a very compelling witness.
But they're already managing expectations.
Certainly the outlines of what he's going to talk about are in the report. So now many Americans haven't read the report, but again, I think we should be realistic about our expectations.
The committees are expected to question Mueller in back-to-back hearings, followed by a closed-door session with the House Intelligence Committee and Mueller's staff to focus on the counterintelligence issues. Mueller's report concluded there was not enough evidence to charge members of the Trump campaign with conspiring with Russians. He left open the question of whether Trump obstructed justice, writing, "If we had confidence that the president clearly did not commit obstruction of justice, we would so state."
Any testimony from this office would not go beyond our report. We chose those words carefully, and the work speaks for itself. And the report is my testimony.
Republicans are jumping at the chance to question the special counsel's conclusions.
Bob Mueller better be prepared, because I can tell you he will be cross-examined for the first time, and the American people will start to see the flaws in his report.
Are you investigating President Trump? Now, Bob Mueller has said that if he is called to testify, he will stick within the four corners of that report, but certainly that won't stop lawmakers from asking truly whatever they want in this made-for-TV testimony.
You're watching National EMTV News. We go for another break. When we come back, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. Each member of Team PNG to the Pacific Games has a hygiene pack courtesy of City Pharmacy Limited as part of their support to the national contingent. They were presented to Team PNG today.
A few athletes representing PNG at the upcoming Samoa Pacific Games gathered at Stop and Shop Waigani Central for the presentation of hygiene packs by CPL. Each member of Team PNG will be receiving a pack before they leave for Samoa. This is the second time CPL has sponsored the team with such packs.
They supported us in 2017 with the team going to the Vanuatu mini games. They gave us hygiene packs to take away for each of the traveling team, and it's the second time, and for me it's really important because sometimes when athletes or even officials, when they're busy running around trying to do their everyday job and getting ready for the games, they forget these little things.
CPL Group Managing Director Mahesh Patel says they are happy to be supplying hygienic packs to the team and supporting athletes as they go for the Samoa Games.
Proud moment for the whole country, so I think encouragement like this goes a small way, but I think it's important for the team members.
A total of 479 athletes, officials and managers will be attending the games. PNG will be competing in 24 out of 27 sporting events, and Chef de Mission Emma YY is confident PNG will do well.
You know, just like in Vanuatu in 2017, we took 10 out of the 14 sports and we topped the medal tally, so I don't see it as an impossible task for us going there.
3 sporting codes and 3 teams will not be attending this year's games because they failed to follow PNG OC's selection criteria.
And they are badminton, triathlon and lawn bowls. Apart from that, we also have 3 teams that are not taking part. Rugby men 7, indoor volleyball women and VAR men who have not, those sports and those teams have not met the selection criteria that was established, which the justification committee used to select teams going to the games.
Team PNG has one aim, which is to top the medal tally on foreign soil. This has never been done before, and this year's squad will be hoping to create history. The team will be traveling to Samoa next Thursday and Friday.
They call us the land of the unexpected, and so as far as I'm concerned, nothing is impossible. We've got 357 athletes that are the best in the country, and they will be out there to make sure that they come home with what they set out to do.
One team! One team!
Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
Papua New Guinea still lacks NRL talent in its national team, but the young Kumul talent from PNG have the chance to break into the NRL and, looking ahead, build a strong Kumul's team for years to come.
A sight of patriotism. Young Bernard Lewis with tears rolling down his cheek as he sang the Papua New Guinea national anthem during the Pacific Test against Samoa. The 21-year-old from a mixed parentage of Western Province and Australia is truly a proud Papua New Guinean. And despite the loss, he has the picture of his patriotic moment as his Facebook profile picture. He and other young players in the team are the future for the Kumuls, and Marum says they are always made to feel welcome.
Yeah, I think it's really important we look at those young players. They're the future of the team. Yeah, so I thought they were not given enough opportunity there. The ball never came out to them. Xavier had a head knock and also came off through HIA, but he's a good kid. For us that week, we wanted to make sure we look after them really well, and they feel welcome next time they get selected. So.
The sad reality for Papua New Guinea is the fact that there is a limited supply of elite level players in the National Rugby League. The positive is that we have talented young players who can make it to that level, and they are currently in the Kumul's wider squad.
I'll be honest here, we don't have a lot of players. We think we have a lot, but if you have to select your best players from competitions that we're looking at, there's not many players there. So for us, we need to identify those junior players that are playing in junior competitions down there and make sure they get up to a standard where we want to see them play.
Their form is good enough to constitute a Kumul's jersey, but there still needs to be a lot done to break into the NRL. For the Kumul's coaching team, there is a wider group of players in the Kumul's scope, playing in Australia and overseas in certain competitions, amounting to 40 plus, but the standard still remains the NRL.
Eden Agabi is outstanding player in the kick-out competition. Test match is different football. He struggled through the high kicks there, and his game wasn't expected. One of Terry Wapi, he was on the other side. He was better. And he probably he came through the past 4 games and he played really well. So that his form we just took into that game there. So, but we by the squad we got 40 names, 50 names. But, a couple of them are only playing NRL. So.
Fidelis Sukina, National EMTV Sports.
PNG professional boxing patron and founder of Oceania Fight Promotions, Ben Maika, is calling on individuals and professional boxing clubs around the country to create an interim body that will lead to creating a national federation. He says once a professional boxing federation is established, fighters in the country can then be ranked according to results from national championships.
Important steps that I am working with other
Micah has decided to lead the way for all professional fighters in the country by giving an open invitation to boxing enthusiasts and promoters in the country to get in touch with him and discuss the possibilities of creating an interim body for professional boxing in PNG. He says the only way to revive and promote the sport which Papua New Guineans once followed religiously because of boxing legend Martin Benny can be repeated if a federation is formed. He added a rating system in all categories would also benefit professional boxers in the country in terms of identifying individual rankings.
To set up an interim body for establishing a boxing federation. That federation will become the sanctioning body for our national titles, which we plan to host around October, November, December.
He says a good place to start would be at provincial level, where fighters can host provincial tournaments to identify provincial rankings. He says once provincial tournaments are established, other tournaments such as the national titles can then be hosted to identify overall rankings in the country.
Our aim is to start at the provincial level. You know, we will have provincial championship bouts, and then 19 or 22 provinces will compete for the, for the national titles in the 13 categories.
Micah says a collective effort from business houses, individuals and government will be needed if professional boxing is to make its presence known at national and international level. He says it is only then that PNG's best professional fighters, just like legend Martin Benny, can be showcased to represent PNG in Australia, Philippines, New Zealand and America, and to be in line with the rest of the world.
This sport, you only pay for one man, his coach, his trainer, 3 people to go and make Papua New Guinea great in any international arena.
Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
Don't go anywhere, we'll have more of Trukai Sports after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To the Cricket World Cup now, and it's been a crucial day and one that could have consequences for host nation England. Australia qualified for the semi-final with a 64-run win against England, who are now facing an uphill battle to make the semi-finals themselves.
286 was very gettable, but they made a disastrous start. Opener James Vince out for a duck, and England quickly slumped to 53 for 4. As is often the case, they pinned their hopes on Ben Stokes, and he did his best, making an impressive 89, but he couldn't get his team over the line. And when Adil Rashid was caught, England were all out for 221. That's well short of their target. That was a convincing win for the Aussies, though. They become the first team to qualify for the semis, but England's fate is now uncertain. The pre-tournament favourites must now win their last 2 games against India and New Zealand, and neither of them have lost a game yet. Earlier I caught up with CNN's James Masters, who watched the game at Lord's.
I've been to cricket grounds across the world, Don, and perhaps I'm biased, but I think Lord's is probably one of the best. But today did feel a little flat, especially this morning. And I think in part that's because Australia played beautifully this morning. You know, David Warner was greeted with a few boos. Obviously, he's back in England after the 12-month ban for ball tampering. He came out and got 53 alongside Aaron Finch, who got 100. Australia were 123 for no wicket. And the England fans didn't have anything to get excited about. And when Steve Smith came in, of course, you know, the other guy who was banned for ball tampering, that's when the crowd really came to life. You heard the boos. You heard the boos from outside the stadium. I don't really think it made a difference at the end of the day to those players. You know, Smith and Warner, they're consummate professionals. They play their cricket. They played really, really well. India look outstanding. They've looked great from the moment they turned up in this country. And New Zealand, who, you know, always underestimated, always overlooked, made the final 4 years ago. They haven't lost a game yet. They look very, very consistent. England are really going to have to up their game. You can see from the body language and even the fielding today, they're just really struggling at the moment. They need some spark. They need something to go up against India. They need to go and win that game. Someone's going to make something happen. Ben Stokes was great today. He hit 89. But, you know, there was too little too late for England.
And that ends Trukai Sports for this evening. When we come back, we take a quick look at the weather for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A quick look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours, and in the southern region, rain drizzles expected in Port Moresby, cloudy weather and some rain in the rest of the region, Daru, Kerma, Alotau and Popondetta.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the news, sport and weather for today, Thursday, the 27th of June. On behalf of the news team, pleasant viewing. Good night.